The massive alien ship appeared at the edge of Earth's solar system without warning. It was bigger than anything humans had ever built, stretching for miles in every direction. The ship looked like a dark metal mountain floating in space, covered with strange lights that pulsed in patterns no human could understand. Admiral Zethkar stood on the bridge of the ship called Sovereign Mandate. He was 7 feet tall with skin that looked like purple crystal. His forearms moved across control panels while his large black eyes studied the data about Earth. Behind him, other aliens worked at their stations. Some looked like giant insects, others like walking plants, and a few seemed to be made of living metal. Zethkar had been conquering planets for 300 years. He knew exactly how this would go. Every species followed the same pattern when they saw the power of the galactic hegemony. First came fear, then desperate attempts to fight, and finally complete surrender. It was always the same story. The Admiral looked at the information his scouts had gathered about Earth. The humans had barely figured out how to leave their own planet. Their biggest ships could only reach their moon. They still used primitive weapons that shot metal bullets instead of energy beams. Their planet was divided into hundreds of separate groups that constantly fought each other over resources and ideas. Perfect, Zethkar thought to himself. Another easy conquest. He opened a communication channel to Earth. The translation computers would make sure the humans understood every word. The message was simple and direct, just like all the others he had sent to thousands of worlds before. People of Earth. His voice boomed across every radio, television, and internet connection on the planet. I am Admiral Zethkar of the Galactic Hegemony. Your world has been selected for integration into our empire. You have 72 standard hours to surrender completely. Submit to our rule. Give us control of your planet and accept your new role as workers in our galactic civilization. The Admiral paused, letting the words sink in. This was always his favorite part. If you refuse, he continued, we will destroy your cities from space. Your species will be cataloged and assigned to manual labor on mining worlds. You cannot fight us. You cannot hide from us. You can only choose to make this easy or hard for yourselves. The transmission ended. Zethkar settled back in his command chair and waited. Usually it took less than 6 hours for primitive species to realize they had no choice. The smart ones surrendered immediately. The stupid ones tried to fight first, but they always gave up after seeing what hegemony weapons could do to their biggest cities. On Earth, every government leader in the world was staring at screens showing the alien message. The ship's energy readings were beyond anything human science could measure. Satellite images showed weapons that could probably crack continents in half. This was not some science fiction movie. This was real, and humanity was completely outgunned. President Chen sat in the emergency command center deep underground in Colorado. Around her, military officers and scientists argued about what to do. Some wanted to try fighting. Others insisted they should surrender immediately to save lives. The energy signature from that ship could power our entire planet for a year, Dr. Martinez said, shaking his head. If they wanted to destroy us, we would already be dead. General Morrison slammed his hand on the table. We can't just give up without trying something. There has to be a way to fight back. President Chen listened to the arguments, but something about the alien message bothered her. She had spent 20 years in politics and business before becoming president. The Admiral's words sounded familiar somehow. They reminded her of corporate takeover letters she had seen during her time as a lawyer. Send this message to every world leader immediately, she said suddenly. I want an emergency meeting of the United Nations Security Council in 2 hours. Get me the best lawyers, diplomats, and negotiators we have. Also, I want linguists and anyone who understands how legal systems work. Ma'am, General Morrison said carefully, I don't think we can negotiate with these aliens. They're offering us slavery or death. President Chen smiled grimly. General, I've been dealing with bullies my whole career. Corporate bullies, political bullies, and international bullies. They all have one thing in common. They use fear and intimidation because they think it's easier than actually fighting. But every bully has rules they have to follow, even if they don't want to admit it. She pointed at the translation of the alien message on the main screen. Look at this language. Integration into our empire. Standard hours. Galactic civilization. These aliens aren't just conquerors. They're bureaucrats. They have procedures and protocols they follow. And if there are procedures, there are probably rules. And if there are rules, there might be loopholes, finished Dr. Sarah Kim, one of the international law experts who had just arrived. President Chen nodded. Exactly. Get me everything we know about how these aliens communicate. I want to understand their legal system. If they're going to treat this like a business transaction, then we're going to respond like lawyers. Meanwhile, on the Sovereign Mandate, Admiral Zethkar reviewed the standard conquest protocols. Step 1 was always the same. Deliver the ultimatum and wait for surrender. Step 2 would be accepting the formal submission documents. Step 3 was establishing a planetary government that answered to the hegemony. He had done this so many times that he could predict exactly how long each step would take. Primitive species like humans usually took between 6 and 18 hours to accept reality. The smart ones asked questions about what surrender would mean. The proud ones made angry speeches about freedom and resistance before giving up. The Admiral's assistant, an insect-like creature named Vextel, approached his chair. Sir, we're receiving multiple communication attempts from the human planet. Should we respond? Not yet, Zethkar replied. Let them panic for a few more hours. Fear makes the surrender process much smoother. But down on Earth, something very different was happening. In conference rooms around the world, teams of humans were doing something no other species had ever done when faced with hegemony conquest protocols. They were reading the fine print. Dr. Kim had assembled a team of international lawyers, constitutional scholars, and legal experts from every major country on Earth. They were treating the alien ultimatum like the most important contract. Negotiation in human history. The translation software they're using is incredibly sophisticated, reported Dr. Zhang, a linguist from Beijing. But it's too good. It's translating their concepts into our legal terminology perfectly. That suggests they have a very formal, very structured approach to these situations, which means they're probably following established procedures, added Professor Williams from Oxford. Procedures that were designed to work with species that don't understand galactic law. President Chen listened to the reports coming in from similar teams around the world. The European Union had found references to something called galactic protocols in the alien message. The African Union had identified language that suggested there might be appeals processes. Even small nations were contributing pieces of the puzzle. Ma'am, Dr. Kim said after 6 hours of analysis, I think we need to respond to these aliens, but not the way they expect. What do you mean? I mean, we should treat this like what it apparently is, a legal proceeding. If they want to conquer Earth through official procedures, then we should respond through official procedures. Make them prove they have the legal right to do what they're threatening. Admiral Zethkar was getting impatient. Usually by this time, primitive species were already sending surrender messages, but Earth had been silent for hours. His tactical officers reported no military movement, no attempts to flee the planet, no signs of the usual panic. Sir, Vextel announced, we're receiving a transmission from Earth. Finally, the Admiral muttered. Put it on the main screen. Instead of a frightened world leader begging for mercy, the screen showed a human woman in a business suit sitting at a conference table. Behind her, other humans were visible working with documents and computers. Admiral Zethkar, President Chen said calmly, I am President Chen of Earth. We have received your ultimatum and have some questions about your legal authority to make these demands. We would like to request a formal meeting to discuss the terms and conditions of your proposed integration process. The Admiral stared at the screen in confusion. In 300 years of conquest, no species had ever asked for a meeting to discuss terms. They either surrendered or tried to fight. They certainly never questioned his legal authority. We look forward to your response, President Chen continued. Our legal team is prepared to begin negotiations at your earliest convenience. The transmission ended, leaving the bridge of the Sovereign Mandate in stunned silence. Admiral Zethkar had absolutely no idea what had just happened. On Earth, President Chen turned to her team of advisors. How long do we have before they expect a formal surrender? 60 hours, Dr. Kim replied. Good. That gives us time to figure out exactly what kind of legal system we're dealing with. If these aliens want to play by rules, then we're going to make sure we understand those rules better than they do. The first move in humanity's greatest legal battle had just been made. 24 hours after Earth's unexpected response, another transmission arrived from the Sovereign Mandate. This time it wasn't just a simple ultimatum. Admiral Zethkar had sent what appeared to be a complete legal document explaining exactly how Earth's conquest would work. The document was massive. 847 pages of text that covered everything from resource extraction quotas to population management protocols. It was written in the same formal bureaucratic language that governments and corporations used everywhere. But this wasn't just any bureaucratic document. This was apparently the standard legal framework that had been used to govern galactic civilization for thousands of years. Dr. Sarah Kim had been awake for 36 hours straight, leading a team of the world's most aggressive lawyers as they studied every single word. The emergency coalition of legal experts had grown to include people from every continent. Constitutional lawyers from Germany worked alongside tax specialists from Japan. Corporate attorneys from New York collaborated with human rights advocates from South Africa. "This is incredible," Dr. Kim said to the assembled team via video conference. "They've basically sent us their entire playbook. Every rule, every procedure, every legal justification they use for conquering planets." Professor Williams from Oxford adjusted his glasses as he scrolled through his section of the document. The language is remarkably similar to colonial-era treaties from Earth's history. Same basic structure. We're more advanced. Therefore, we have the right to take control of your resources and population for your own good. But look at Section 47, interrupted Dr. Martinez from Madrid. They reference something called the Galactic Council Legal Code. That suggests there's a higher authority than just this hegemony organization. Dr. Kim nodded excitedly. That's exactly what we found. This entire document is based on legal precedents and regulations that apparently govern how different species interact across the galaxy, which means they're not just making this up as they go along, finished Dr. Thompson from the International Court of Justice. They're following established laws that we might be able to challenge. The breakthrough came when Dr. Zhang, working with a team of linguists and computer programmers, managed to decode some of the reference numbers mentioned in the alien document. They weren't just random codes. They were citations to specific galactic laws and treaties. "Look at this," Dr. Zhang announced to the global legal team. Reference number GC4472 Alpha appears to be citing a law about protection of developing civilizations. And reference GC8834 Beta seems to be about cultural preservation requirements for species integration. Dr. Kim felt her heart racing. "Can you find the actual text of these laws?" "Not yet, but the aliens' translation software is incredibly sophisticated. If we send them specific requests for legal documentation, they might be required to provide it under their own rules." President Chen arrived in the legal team's war room, just as Dr. Kim was putting together humanity's formal response to the hegemony. The president looked exhausted but determined. "What do we have?" she asked. "We have something no other species has probably ever had," Dr. Kim replied. "We have lawyers who specialize in finding loopholes in everything from tax codes to international treaties. And the aliens just sent us a document that's full of holes." She pulled up a summary on the main screen. First, they claim authority under galactic law to integrate developing civilizations. But they haven't proven that Earth qualifies as a developing civilization under the legal definition. Second, they reference cultural protection requirements but haven't conducted any cultural impact assessments. Third, they cite economic development protocols but haven't provided any environmental impact studies. President Chen smiled for the first time in 2 days. "So what are you saying?" "I'm saying that if these aliens want to conquer Earth through legal procedures, then they're going to have to follow all the legal procedures. And based on what we've found, they haven't even started following their own rules properly." The response that Earth sent to Admiral Zethkar 48 hours into the ultimatum period was unlike anything in galactic history. Instead of surrender documents or desperate pleas for mercy, the humans sent a formal legal challenge that made the hegemony's translation computers work overtime. Earth's legal team had prepared a document that was over 2,000 pages long. It was written in the same formal style as the hegemony's conquest protocols, but it systematically challenged every single assumption the aliens had made about their legal authority. The document began by formally questioning the hegemony's standing to make territorial claims in the Sol system. Dr. Kim and her team had found 17 different precedents in galactic law that required specific procedures before any species could claim control over another species' home system. Under Galactic Council Resolution 472 Alpha, the document stated, developing civilizations are entitled to cultural protection assessments before any integration procedures can begin. No such assessment has been provided. Furthermore, it continued, Galactic Environmental Protection Code 8834 Beta requires complete environmental impact studies before any resource extraction can be authorized. No such studies have been submitted, but the humans didn't stop at just defending themselves. They went on the attack. Earth hereby files a formal complaint against the galactic hegemony for violation of at least 37 separate galactic statutes regarding proper first contact procedures. We demand immediate compensation for economic disruption caused by unauthorized military presence in our solar system. Admiral Zethkar stared at his translation screens in complete bewilderment. In 3,000 years of conquest, no species had ever responded to subjugation protocols with what appeared to be a counter-lawsuit. Sir, his legal advisor, an ancient crystalline being named Morthul, said slowly, the humans appear to be invoking formal challenge procedures under the Galactic Legal Code. What does that mean? The Admiral demanded. It means, Morthul replied with growing concern, that they're demanding a formal tribunal hearing. Under galactic law, if a species formally challenges conquest procedures and cites specific legal violations, the conquest must be halted until a tribunal can review the case. Admiral Zethkar's forearms clenched into fists. That's impossible. Primitive species don't know about galactic law. They don't understand how tribunals work. Nevertheless, Morthul said, the humans have filed their challenge correctly. They've cited proper precedents and followed established procedures. Under the law, we must respond. On Earth, Dr. Kim and her team watched the alien ship's energy signatures carefully. If the Admiral decided to ignore galactic law and attack anyway, there was nothing humanity could do to stop him. But if the hegemony actually followed their own legal system, then Earth had just bought itself time. The response came 6 hours later. Instead of an attack, the Sovereign Mandate transmitted a formal acknowledgement of Earth's legal challenge and notification that the case would be referred to the Galactic Tribunal for resolution. We did it, Dr. Kim whispered. We actually did it. President Chen looked at the celebration happening around her, but she knew this was just the beginning. How long do we have before this tribunal hearing? According to galactic legal procedures, Dr. Kim replied, both sides have 30 standard days to prepare their cases. The hearing itself could take weeks. And what happens if we lose? Dr. Kim's expression became serious. If we lose, the tribunal will authorize the hegemony to proceed with conquest. But if we win, President Chen said slowly, we set a precedent that could change how the entire galaxy operates. Meanwhile, news of Earth's legal challenge was spreading through galactic civilization faster than anyone expected. For the first time in thousands of years, a species had successfully challenged hegemony conquest procedures. Worlds that had been conquered decades or centuries ago were sending secret messages to Earth, asking for copies of the legal documents that had stopped the Admiral's fleet. The Galactic Tribunal was an ancient institution that hadn't heard a major case in over 500 years. Most species either submitted to the hegemony immediately or were conquered before they understood galactic law existed. But Earth had done something unprecedented. They had turned first contact into a legal proceeding. Admiral Zethkar paced his bridge angrily. His orders from Hegemony High Command were clear. Win the tribunal case or find another way to complete the conquest. Failure was not acceptable. But as reports came in from the tribunal station, the Admiral began to realize that humanity might be more dangerous than any species he had ever encountered. They weren't dangerous because of their weapons or their technology. They were dangerous because they had spent thousands of years developing something the galaxy had forgotten. The ability to use rules and laws as weapons. Earth's legal team was already preparing for the next phase of their battle. They had stopped the immediate threat, but now they had to prove in front of the galaxy's highest court that the hegemony had no right to conquer Earth, and they were just getting started. Send a message to every law school, every legal aid organization, and every human rights group on the planet, President Chen ordered. We're going to need every lawyer we can get. We're not just fighting for Earth anymore. We're fighting the Galactic Tribunal convened on Concordia Prime, a massive space station that had been built specifically for resolving disputes between star-spanning civilizations. The station was enormous, bigger than Earth's moon, with chambers designed to accommodate every known type of intelligent life in the galaxy. Admiral Zethkar arrived with the Hegemony's standard legal team. Senior Advocate Morthul led a group of experienced lawyers who had successfully defended hegemony expansion policies for centuries. They had never lost a case because most species didn't even know the tribunal existed until after they had been conquered. The hegemony legal team was confident. They had thousands of years of precedent on their side. Every previous challenge to their authority had been easily defeated by simply citing the long history of successful conquests. Galactic law, they believed, was clearly on their side. Earth's delegation arrived in a small fleet of hastily converted cargo ships. The ships looked primitive compared to the sleek vessels of other galactic civilizations, but what they lacked in advanced technology, they made up for in determination and preparation. The human legal team was led by former Supreme Court Justice Elena Rodriguez, who had volunteered for what everyone knew might be a one-way trip to deep space. Behind her came the most aggressive collection of legal minds Earth had ever assembled. Corporate lawyers who specialized in hostile takeovers worked alongside constitutional scholars who had spent their careers interpreting complex legal documents. Tax attorneys who could find loopholes in any code collaborated with environmental lawyers who had fought multinational corporations for decades. The tribunal chamber itself was intimidating. 3 massive seats dominated the center of the room, designed for the 3-judge panel that would decide Earth's fate. The judges represented some of the galaxy's oldest and most respected civilizations. High Arbiter Keth Moran, a 15-foot-tall being whose species had been resolving galactic disputes for 10,000 years. Judge Veltara, whose crystalline form contained the accumulated legal knowledge of her entire civilization, and Chief D. Justice Quindar, an ancient entity whose species existed partially outside normal space-time and could remember every legal decision ever made in galactic history. Senior Advocate Morthul began the hegemony's presentation with practiced confidence. He had given this same basic argument hundreds of times before. The hegemony represented order and civilization in a chaotic galaxy. Their expansion brought primitive species into galactic society, providing them with technology, medicine, and culture they could never achieve on their own. Earth was simply the latest in a long line of worlds that would benefit from hegemony guidance. Your Honors, Morthul declared, the hegemony has been bringing peace and prosperity to developing worlds for 3 millennia. Our methods have been tested and proven across thousands of systems. Earth represents a standard case of a primitive species that requires integration for their own protection and development. He presented the usual evidence. Earth's military technology was centuries behind galactic standards. Their political systems were fragmented and inefficient, and their environmental management was causing significant damage to their own planet. By every measure used in galactic law, humans qualified as a developing species in need of guidance. The law is clear, Morthul continued. Galactic Development Protocol 847 Gamma specifically authorizes advanced civilizations to intervene when primitive species pose a danger to themselves or others. Earth's nuclear weapons, environmental destruction, and aggressive expansion into space clearly qualify them for mandatory integration. The presentation was smooth, professional, and completely routine. Morthul had given this same argument so many times that he could recite it in his sleep. He expected the human lawyers to present some emotional appeals about freedom and independence, which the tribunal would politely acknowledge before ruling in favor of established precedent. Then Justice Rodriguez stood up to present Earth's case, and everything changed. Your Honors, she began, we thank the tribunal for this opportunity to present evidence that the hegemony's so-called legal authority is built on a foundation of systematic violations of galactic law that have been overlooked for centuries. Instead of defending Earth's primitive status, the human legal team went on the attack. They didn't just challenge the hegemony's right to conquer Earth, they challenged the hegemony's right to exist at all. We present as Exhibit A, Justice, Rodriguez announced, a complete analysis of hegemony expansion policies dating back 3,000 years. Our research shows that the hegemony has violated galactic law approximately 847,000 times across 12,000 different star systems. The courtroom erupted in confusion. Senior Advocate Morthul jumped to his feet. Objection! The humans have no standing to challenge historical hegemony policies. This tribunal was convened to address Earth's integration, not to relitigate settled law. Your Honor, Justice Rodriguez replied calmly. The humans challenged the hegemony's legal standing to make any territorial claims whatsoever. If the hegemony has been operating outside galactic law for centuries, then they have no authority to invoke that same law to justify conquering Earth. Judge Veltara's crystalline form flickered with interest. Counselor Rodriguez, this is a highly unusual argument. What evidence do you present to support such extraordinary claims? What followed was the most thorough legal demolition in galactic history. The human team had spent every available hour since the tribunal was announced, studying not just galactic law, but the entire documented history of hegemony expansion. They had found something that apparently no one else had ever bothered to. Look for actual evidence of what the hegemony had been doing for 3,000 years. Exhibit B, announced Dr. Kim, who served as Justice Rodriguez's lead researcher, demonstrates that Galactic Environmental Protection Act 4472 Delta requires comprehensive ecosystem analysis before any world can be subjected to industrial development. We have found no evidence that such analysis was conducted for any of the 847 worlds currently under hegemony control. Exhibit C shows that Cultural Preservation Statute 8834 Alpha mandates that indigenous populations must be consulted before any governmental changes can be implemented. Records show that 98.7% of hegemony conquests proceeded without any such consultation. Exhibit D proves that the Sentient Species Protection Accord of Galactic Year 847293 specifically prohibits the use of military threats to coerce political submission. Yet the hegemony standard first contact protocol involves exactly such threats. Senior Advocate Morthul was experiencing something his predatory species had no word for, being completely outmaneuvered by prey. The humans weren't just arguing law. They were systematically demonstrating that everything the hegemony had done for centuries was illegal under the very legal system they claimed to represent. Your Honors, Dr. Kim continued, we have identified violations of 127 major galactic statutes, 3,147 minor regulatory codes, and approximately 30,000 procedural requirements. The hegemony has not been lawfully expanding galactic civilization. They have been running the largest criminal organization in galactic history. The three judges consulted among themselves in rapid, complex harmonics that no translation system could follow. Finally, High Arbiter Keth Moran spoke. Counselor Rodriguez, these are extremely serious allegations. If proven, they would require not just a ruling on Earth's status, but a complete review of galactic legal precedent dating back millennia. Yes, Your Honor, Justice Rodriguez replied. That is exactly what we are requesting. Chief Justice Quindar's ancient voice resonated through dimensions that most species couldn't perceive. And you believe you can prove these allegations? Justice Rodriguez smiled grimly. Your Honor, we are prepared to present documentation for every single violation we have cited. We have analyzed hegemony records going back 3,000 years. We have cross-referenced their actions against every relevant statute in galactic law. We are not making accusations. We are presenting evidence. For the first time in his 300-year career, Senior Advocate Morthul found himself in a courtroom where his opponents knew the law better than he did. The humans had done something unthinkable. They had actually read the fine print of galactic civilization. Judge Veltara's form pulsed with colors that indicated deep consideration. This tribunal has never encountered such a comprehensive challenge to established precedent. We will need time to review the evidence presented. Of course, Your Honor, Justice Rodriguez replied. We have prepared detailed documentation for each violation, cross-indexed by date, legal statute, and affected star system. We estimate the complete review will require approximately 47 standard days. As the tribunal recessed to consider the evidence, Senior Advocate Morthul realized that the hegemony was facing something far more dangerous than rebellion or military resistance. They were facing a species that had turned the law itself into a weapon. Admiral Zethkar, watching the proceedings from the Sovereign Mandate, received an emergency communication from Hegemony High Command. The tone was no longer confident and commanding. It was panicked. "Admiral," the transmission began. "Preliminary reports from the tribunal suggest that the human legal challenge may have." The Galactic Tribunal's preliminary ruling sent shockwaves across the galaxy. For the first time in recorded history, a subjugation protocol had been not just challenged, but stayed pending a full investigation into the legal foundations of galactic expansion policy. High Arbiter Keth Morin's announcement was broadcast to every civilized world in the galaxy. The tribunal finds that the legal challenge presented by Earth has sufficient merit to warrant comprehensive review. All hegemony expansion activities are hereby suspended pending resolution of these proceedings. The ruling meant that the hegemony couldn't conquer Earth, but it also meant something much more significant. Thousands of worlds that had been conquered over the past 3 millennia suddenly learned that their subjugation might have been illegal from the very beginning. Admiral Zethkar received new orders from hegemony, high command within hours of the tribunal's ruling. The message was brief and direct. Ignore tribunal ruling. Proceed with subjugation immediately. Hegemony expansion cannot be delayed by primitive legal challenges. The Admiral stared at the orders for a long time. In his 300 years of service, he had never been ordered to violate galactic law. But he had also never seen the hegemony's authority challenged so effectively. His superiors were clearly panicking. "Sir," his tactical officer reported, "shall we begin orbital bombardment preparations?" Zethkar looked at the tactical display showing Earth's defenses. The planet had no space fleet, no energy shields, no orbital weapons platforms. By every military measure, they were completely helpless against hegemony firepower. "Begin approach to Earth," he ordered. "Full battle formation." But as the hegemony fleet moved toward Earth's inner solar system, they encountered something that no galactic civilization had ever seen before. Earth hadn't spent their 72-hour deadline cowering in fear or desperately trying to build impossible defenses. Instead, they had done something characteristically human. They had gotten creative. The first sign that something was wrong came when the lead scout ships encountered what the sensors classified as irregular debris patterns in the asteroid belt. Too late, the hegemony pilots realized that these weren't random space rocks. They were precisely placed projectiles accelerated to incredible speeds by improvised electromagnetic launchers. "Contact," the scout commander reported, taking heavy kinetic impacts. "These aren't natural asteroids. They're weapons." Admiral Zethkar studied the sensor data in disbelief. "How are they accelerating solid matter to such velocities? Their technology shouldn't be capable of this." "Sir," his chief engineer reported with growing amazement, "they appear to have connected their entire planetary electrical grid into a series of massive electromagnetic railguns. The energy expenditure is enormous. They've basically turned their whole planet into a weapon." "That's impossible," the Admiral insisted. "The power requirements would cripple their civilization." "Sir," the engineer continued, "half their planet is currently operating on backup power. They deliberately shut down their own infrastructure to create this defensive barrier. The kinetic bombardment was devastating to the hegemony's smaller ships, but it was just the beginning of Earth's response. As the main fleet pushed through the debris field, they encountered something even more unexpected. An information warfare attack unlike anything in galactic military history. Every hegemony ship suddenly found its communication. Systems flooded with transmissions from Earth. Not random signals or desperate pleas for mercy, but thousands upon thousands of official documents, legal challenges, environmental impact assessments, customs declarations, immigration paperwork, and formal requests for documentation of their authority to enter Sol system space. "Sir," the communications officer reported with rising panic, "we're receiving 847,000 individual legal documents. Every human legal jurisdiction on the planet has filed separate charges against us for violation of airspace, environmental protection laws, noise ordinances, and unauthorized military exercises in a protected star system." Admiral Zethkar's mandibles clicked in frustrated confusion. "Just ignore them. Focus on the military targets." But the transmissions weren't just harassment. They were something much more sophisticated. Viral code designed by a species that had spent decades learning to hack everything from household appliances to military networks. Earth's internet engineers, given 3 days to get creative, had turned their entire digital civilization into a distributed attack system. Sir, the tactical officer called out, our targeting computers are malfunctioning. Every time we try to lock onto a target, we get interrupted by some kind of customer service call. What? The targeting system keeps getting redirected to automated customer service menus. It's asking us to rate our experience on a scale of 1 to 10 and requesting feedback about our visit to Earth's solar system. The Admiral's forearms clenched in fury. Override the computers. Target manually. We're trying, sir, but every time we activate a weapons system, it gets flooded with pop-up advertisements. Our plasma cannon controls are currently showing promotional materials for something called Earth Tourism Bureau and asking if we'd like to visit Hawaii. What the hegemony was experiencing was the weaponization of every annoying aspect of human digital technology. Earth's programmers had taken spam, pop-up ads, computer viruses, automated customer service, and bureaucratic red tape, and turned them into military weapons. The hegemony ships found themselves trapped in a nightmare of human innovation. Their navigation systems kept getting redirected to online shopping websites. Their internal communications were flooded with robocalls asking them to update their ship's extended warranty. Their weapons targeting kept getting interrupted by mandatory software updates that seemed to take forever to install. Sir, the communications officer reported with growing desperation, we're now receiving formal lawsuits from 12,147 different human legal organizations. They're suing us for everything from trespassing to violation of interplanetary environmental protection laws. And, sir, added the tactical officer, our weapon systems are now requesting that we complete a customer satisfaction survey before we can fire. It says the survey will only take 15 minutes, but every question leads to 3 more questions. Admiral Zethkar realized that Earth had done something unprecedented in galactic warfare. They had turned bureaucracy itself into a weapon. Instead of trying to match the hegemony's military technology, they had used their greatest strength, the ability to make simple processes incredibly complicated and annoying. Get me a direct line to Hegemony High Command, the Admiral ordered. Sir, the communications officer replied weakly. Our communications array is currently being asked to verify its identity by answering security questions. It wants to know the name of our starship's first pet and the city where our main computer was manufactured. The final blow came when Earth's legal team, working with the Galactic Tribunal, transmitted their ultimate discovery to every ship in the Hegemony fleet. They had found something in the deepest archives of galactic law that changed everything. Justice Rodriguez's voice echoed across the Hegemony battle group. Admiral Zethkar, by the authority of Galactic Tribunal Case 12847 Alpha, you are hereby notified that the Hegemony's entire expansion policy has been found to be in violation of the foundational charter of galactic civilization, Section 1, Subsection A, which states, no civilization may impose its will upon another through threat of force without explicit consent of the governed and approval of the Galactic Council. The transmission continued. Analysis of hegemony records indicates that this fundamental law has been violated 12,847 times across 847 star systems over a period of 3,000 years. The tribunal has ruled that all hegemony, territorial claims are null and void pending immediate cessation of hostile activities and full legal review. Admiral Zethkar stared at his screens in stunned silence. His entire career, everything the hegemony stood for, the foundation of galactic civilization as he knew it, had just been declared illegal by the very legal system it claimed to represent. Sir, his legal advisor whispered, if this ruling stands, it means every world we've conquered has the right to immediate independence. It means the hegemony itself may be classified as a criminal organization under galactic law. The Q. Admiral's tactical displays showed that his fleet was still capable of destroying Earth. His weapons could still glass the planet, despite all the human tricks and legal challenges, but doing so now would make him a war criminal under galactic law, and the tribunal's ruling was being broadcast to every civilization in the galaxy. Admiral, came a new transmission from Hegemony High Command. The tone was no longer commanding. It was desperate. Abort mission immediately. Return to base for emergency consultation. Do not engage human forces under any circumstances. For the first time in his 300-year career, Admiral Zethkar was ordered to retreat without firing a shot. Not because his enemy was too strong, but because his enemy had turned the very concept of legal authority into a weapon that the hegemony couldn't fight. Earth had proven something that would change galactic civilization forever. Every rule could be challenged, every system could be questioned, and every bureaucracy could be used against itself by people who really understood how to read the fine print. The age of conquest through, the hegemony fleet hung motionless in space, caught between their orders to retreat and their complete inability to understand what had just happened to them. Admiral Zethkar's ships were still fully operational, still capable of destroying Earth with overwhelming firepower, but they were paralyzed by something far more effective than any weapon: legal uncertainty. "Sir," the communications officer reported with exhausted confusion, "we're still receiving legal documents from Earth. The current count is 2,847,000 individual lawsuits, formal complaints, and cease and desist orders. The humans appear to have automated their legal system to generate new paperwork faster than we can process it. And sir," added the tactical officer, "our weapons systems are now asking us to agree to Earth's terms of service before we can activate them." The document is 847 pages long and includes something called a mandatory arbitration clause. Admiral Zethkar had been a military commander for 3 centuries. He had conquered hundreds of worlds and faced every kind of resistance imaginable, but he had never encountered an enemy that could turn his own ship's computer systems against him using nothing but bureaucratic paperwork and customer service. Protocols, the final transmission, from Hegemony High Command arrived 6 hours later. Instead of the confident, commanding tone that had characterized all previous orders, this message sounded tired and defeated. "Admiral Zethkar," the transmission began, "you are ordered to withdraw all forces from the Sol system immediately. Do not engage human forces under any circumstances. The Galactic Tribunal has issued a preliminary ruling that changes everything." The Admiral listened in growing disbelief as his superiors explained the Tribunal's decision. Earth's legal challenge hadn't just succeeded in stopping their conquest. It had fundamentally undermined the legal foundation of the entire hegemony. The Galactic Tribunal's final ruling was broadcast simultaneously to every civilized world in the galaxy. High Arbiter Keth Moran's ancient voice carried the weight of 10,000 years of galactic legal tradition. After careful review of all evidence presented, the Arbiter announced, "This tribunal finds that the expansion policies of the galactic hegemony have been conducted in systematic violation of the foundational charter of galactic civilization. The use of military force to coerce political submission is expressly forbidden under the most basic principles of galactic law." The ruling continued. Furthermore, the tribunal finds that the legal arguments presented by Earth demonstrate a sophisticated understanding of galactic jurisprudence that qualifies their civilization for immediate recognition as a full member of galactic society, with all attendant rights and protections. Judge Veltara's crystalline form pulsed with colors that indicated the historic nature of the moment. "The tribunal hereby rules that all hegemony territorial claims established through threat of force are null and void. All conquered worlds are granted immediate independence and the right to determine their own governmental structures." Chief Justice Quindar added the final blow. "The hegemony itself is hereby placed under legal review for possible violation of galactic criminal statutes regarding organized coercion and unlawful territorial expansion." The reaction across the galaxy was immediate and overwhelming. Worlds that had been under hegemony control for centuries suddenly learned that their conquest had been illegal from the beginning. Independence movements that had been suppressed for generations suddenly had legal backing from the highest court in galactic civilization. On Earth, President Chen watched the tribunal's ruling with a mixture of relief and amazement. Humanity had not only saved themselves from conquest, they had accidentally liberated half the galaxy. "Ma'am," Dr. Kim reported from the legal team's command center, "we're receiving communication requests from 8 on 47 different star systems. They're all asking for legal assistance in filing independence claims against the hegemony." Justice Rodriguez looked up from her analysis of the tribunal ruling. "We've essentially become the galaxy's first interspecies law firm. Every world that wants to challenge hegemony authority is asking for human lawyers." President Chen smiled grimly. "I suppose that's better than being conquered and enslaved." Admiral Zethkar's final transmission to Earth came as his fleet prepared to leave the Sol system. It was not an official communication. but a personal message born out of professional curiosity and complete bafflement. President Chen, the Admiral's translation came through clearly. I have been a military commander for 300 years. I have conquered 847 worlds using every strategy known to galactic warfare. I have never been defeated by superior firepower, advanced technology, or tactical brilliance. How did your species develop the ability to turn legal procedures into weapons? President Chen's response became legendary across the galaxy and was eventually included in the permanent archives of the Galactic Tribunal. Admiral Zethkar, she replied, humans have been arguing with each other about rules and laws for thousands of years. We've spent centuries perfecting the art of finding loopholes in everything from tax codes to parking regulations. We've turned bureaucracy into a competitive sport and legal challenges into an art form. When you threatened us with your protocols and procedures, you didn't give us a military problem to solve. You gave us the greatest legal puzzle in human history. And we've been training for this our whole civilization. The Admiral's response was brief. Your species is terrifying. Within months of the Tribunal's ruling, Earth established the galaxy's first interspecies legal aid organization. The Galactic Legal Defense Initiative was headquartered in Geneva and staffed by volunteers from every law school on Earth. Their mission was simple: provide legal representation to any world seeking independence from unlawful conquest. The results were dramatic. Within the first year, 347 star systems had successfully filed independence claims. The hegemony, faced with legal challenges they couldn't answer and courts they couldn't intimidate, began negotiating voluntary withdrawals rather than fighting hopeless legal battles. Dr. Kim, now Earth's first ambassador for galactic legal affairs, established offices on dozens of worlds. Her staff of human lawyers worked alongside local legal experts to develop new frameworks for interspecies law that emphasized consent, mutual benefit, and legal transparency. The old system was based on the idea that might makes right, she explained to a gathering of newly independent world leaders. The new system is based on the idea that right makes right, and that means everyone gets lawyers. The transformation of galactic civilization was rapid and comprehensive. The hegemony's forced expansion stopped completely, replaced by voluntary trade agreements and mutual defense pacts. Worlds that had been resource extraction sites became partners in galactic commerce. Species that had been forced into subservience became advocates for their own interests. Earth's role in this transformation was both central and unexpected. Humanity didn't become the galaxy's new military superpower. Instead, they became something far more influential: the galaxy's legal superpower. Human law schools established exchange programs with alien universities. Earth's lawyers traveled across the galaxy, teaching other species how to understand and use galactic law to protect their own interests. The concept of advocacy, fighting for others' rights as hard as you fight for your own, spread throughout civilized space. Admiral Zethkar, facing court-martial by his own people for the largest military failure in galactic history, was ultimately defended by a legal team that included 3 human lawyers. They successfully argued that the Admiral had been operating under orders based on legal precedents that had never been properly challenged. Instead of prison, he was assigned to community service working with the Galactic Legal Defense Initiative to help other former hegemony officers understand their new legal obligations. The hegemony itself underwent a complete transformation. Stripped of their territorial claims and facing thousands of legal challenges, they were forced to reorganize as a voluntary confederation of worlds. Their advanced technology and administrative experience made them valuable partners in galactic civilization, but only when offered freely rather than imposed by force. President Chen, in her final address to the United Nations before stepping down to focus on galactic affairs, reflected on what humanity had accomplished. We didn't save Earth by being stronger than our enemies, she said. We saved Earth by being smarter than our enemies expected. We turned their own rules against them, and in doing so, we discovered that every bully, no matter how powerful, is ultimately limited by the systems they claim to represent. She paused, looking out at the assembly that now included representatives from dozens of alien species. The galaxy thought we were primitive because we fought each other over resources and territory. What they didn't understand is that all that fighting taught us how to argue, how to negotiate, how to find ways to get what we need without destroying what others need. We didn't become galactic citizens despite our history of conflict. We became galactic citizens because of it. The final entry in Earth's first galactic relations report was written by Dr. Kim, looking back on the 3 years since first contact.